Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Welcome, world of social media. I'm Ife Falome of the Her House, and I am joined here by the VP of the Her House, Anthea Clemens,
Mm,
who is also a breastfeeding advocate. How you
Yes.
doing tonight, Anthea?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm
Good.
wonderful. I'm super excited about the conversation we're going to have tonight. We're going to be joined by some more guests. They're going to tune in. They'll probably be available around 8 o'clock, but that does not mean that we cannot have a conversation ahead of time and just,
Yes.
yes,
Mm,
give an introduction to the people um, about what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about what are we talking about? Police brutality in
Yes.
Black communities. And that is a conversation that touches home for both
hmm
you and I. Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to give a briefing about what you're going to talk about?
Well, I will be talking about my big cousin. Her name is Corinne Gaines. And about 4 years ago, August 1st made 4 years, she was murdered by police inside of her home. Her son was shot as a result of everything.
Mm, yes. So we've definitely heard of Corinne Gaines. Most of
Yes.
us have heard her name, and many of us who are activists, organizers, and just concerned citizens, people have spoken her name, shared her story. We've, um, yes, we've definitely heard of her and connected with
Yes.
her on some level, in some way.
Yes.
So, the Council of Mothers, we get together and we talk about issues that are affecting the Black community, issues that affect our families, our children. Um, and this issue is major. So
Yes, it
I'm very
is.
glad to be having this conversation tonight. And I'm very grateful and thankful to you for opening up about your experience.
Yes. Definitely excited. Definitely a tough topic, but it has to be spoken upon. So here we are.
And
Hey, Bree.
we have Bree. Welcome, Bree.
Hello, hello,
We have
hello.
Breanne Robinson. She is the president of FORM, Fighting Oppression and Racism in Monroe. And she's a master IEP coach. Hello, Bree. How you doing?
Yes.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you ladies doing this evening?
We're fine. We're
We're
fine.
doing great.
Awesome, awesome.
Have
Ready
our
to go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, so I was just telling the people that tonight we also will be joined by Tanisha Tilson, the mother of Shali Tilson. Shali
Yes,
Tilson died of severe dehydration in the Rockdale County Jail back in March 2018. He was severely beaten by guards, not given food or water, and remained in solitary confinement for 9 days, where clots formed in his lungs due to dehydration, and he died. He never received medical attention. His mother and father were never allowed to speak or see him. So no justice has been served for this family, okay? We're going to be speaking with Miss Tanisha as well. So we're looking forward to having a conversation.
yes, I am.
Yes.
I'm very excited. There's a lot of current events that are happening still. Still, there's so much to talk about with this topic, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of the main recurring topics because this police harassment, this police brutality is really hurting and harming our communities. It's horrible to be a Black mother raising,
Mm,
we can't even just say Black sons anymore, raising Black children, period. And they are fearful and afraid of the cops, and they shut down and don't want to talk. And it's horrible. And it's always been this way. In certain areas, it has been, of course, far more worse. But the fact now, with technology and everything is really in our face. So now we're like, whoa, it seems that it's been massified, but it's always been here. And now
Yeah.
it's like we're forced to pay attention to it. And a quote by John Lewis says, if you see something wrong, you got to do something. You got to say something. You have to stand up. And I firmly believe in that, which is one of the main reasons Forum was created, is because we're just tired and we got to do something.
Yeah.
We got to do it now.
Yeah. So before you came in, I was just saying how during the show, I am going to speak about my cousin, Corinne Gaines, who was murdered by the police inside of her home, and her son was shot as a result. As well, she had an incident with her being pulled over and beaten, arrested, taken to jail, and as a result of that, she lost a baby. She was pregnant. So, like you said, it is hurting and harming our children. Her son witnessed both of those incidents. I think during one time he was about 3, and the next time he was maybe 4 or 5. So he is now growing up without his mother, and he also has a little sister who, was born for the last incident. So
And these are traumatic experiences. So things happening like this to a child at a child age, even a teenager, young adult, or growner adult, is very traumatizing, and it plays with
exactly.
their mental health. And we all know, as you would hear Miss Tanisha when she gets on talk about, her son was having a mental breakdown.
Hmm.
And instead of them getting a social worker out or someone who's efficiently and adequately trained, because you will hear cops say, "Oh, we're trained."
Hmm.
You didn't go to school for that
Hmm.
particularly, and to be able to come out and, I don't know, maybe do some prevention, some insertion to see what is really going on and how can we help him. We already know once you're a mental person inside of a prison or jail facility, that attention is totally different.
Yes.
Some never get that
Yes.
attention. It is very awful. And I witnessed just 2 days ago. I literally live 0.001 miles from a mental health facility here in Monroe, and a woman, I don't want to use the word escape, but she was roaming and she was trying to, I guess, figure out where she was at. Literally out of nowhere is what it seemed to me. As soon as I pull in my yard, 3 cop cars. So now she is startled, but I see this white Honda looks like a person who works there. So I am, at this time, I am recording the situation because I'm like, the building is right here. She's right here. The building right here. Why haven't anyone come out of the building to say, okay, this is her diagnosis, this is what's going on? Maybe she's
Right.
a wanderer and just wander out of the building. Who knows? But I did not see any of that happen. And as I get back in my car to go up the street, that white Honda literally pulled inside was an actual person who worked there. So I found that very, very interesting. And I don't know what came of it because it lasted maybe about 15 minutes. So it was really quick, but I just prayed. I'm like, I hope this mental health patient is okay and that they didn't go to jail or try to book them and things like that. And that's why I feel like mental health facilities, counselors, and things like that need to really connect with each other. Because a lot of times you will see those type of victims get crazy bonds and things like that, and families can't afford it. And so we definitely need better protocols in place, but it also still fearful even with that. Go ahead, Ife.
Yes, so I love to read our demands, our list of demands, and specifically in the Mothers Councils, we do have a demand around this. So, demand number 3, is we demand that all people stop calling the police on Black people for racial prejudice. Tensions are high. Communities and police are under extreme pressure. We are not willing to risk more Black lives over trivial stops or racially biased calls to 911 or excessive ticketing practices. Okay? We would like a bill to be drafted similar to Oregon Bill HB 3216 that would criminalize calling the police as an act of racial prejudice. Okay? This bill would allow victims of these calls to sue a 911 caller for as much as $500 if the victim can prove that the 911 call was racially motivated or that the caller intended to discriminate or harm the reputation of the victim. Now, it comes down to us asking for things like this because of the situations we find ourselves in, okay? That we're having, the conflicts that seem to be reoccurring between Black people and the police. Just recently, on August 8th in Waycross, Georgia, 2 police officers riddled a car full of bullets that was full of children. It had 5 children in it, a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 16-year-old. The 16-year-old was driving. The 16-year-old and 15-year-old were also assaulted and beaten by the police. One was hit and struck in the head with the butt of a gun. Those officers were put on administrative leave. A lot of times, when we are watching policing in our communities and just viewing what's going on, we know that maybe another approach needs to be taken. Like Bree, you've mentioned, you're saying that sometimes it's a social worker who needs to be called. Sometimes it's mental health, a mental health facility or professional that needs to be called into a situation. And it's not just the way we're policing in the streets, it's also the way policing takes place in our children's schools, which is very similar to the way it happens in the streets. It's very aggressive towards Black children, it's very physical. There's lots of disregard for their bodies, for their safety. Yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
One thing that I like about your demand is that, you know, a lot of times, especially times right now, everyone just swear it's just this weird Black people are being targeted. That it is Black people being targeted, but we also know that there are Black people that target other Black people. So you used a specific word. You said all people who racially prejudiced bias do these calls. And so I think that is very, very important when you're constructing a demand and when you want a particular bill written. That is great. Where are y'all from? I am from Georgia. I live in Monroe, Georgia, so that's where I'm from. This is Brianne. Thank you for your question. We're here to educate and enlighten and empower, you know, our Black mothers and our Black families. So thank you for your question.
And I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not from here, but it's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. And I am in Daytona Beach, Florida. That's where I am.
Yes. So even though we're spread out, we are a network of community. So I just wanted to point that out. That's part of what the Mothers Council is. It's about a community of mothers, of Black mothers who have come together, and we're coming up with solutions to the things that we encounter ourselves and that we witness our sisters encountering. And I just want to bring this up. Yes, this is the Council of Mothers. We are Black women. We're strong Black women and all of that wonderful things. We are very supported by men, and we also love the men in our community.
Yes.
We are family. It's going to take all of us. We all have a place to be. We all have work to do in this.
Yes. Yes.
So our male viewers, please don't be discouraged. We love you guys as well.
I agree. Do not be discouraged. And if you know of any other, brothers that want to support, or might have a sister who's needing some type of support or have questions, please send them our way. Send them to the Her House. We have education for days. We're here to support and uplift everyone, because right now that's what we need. We need to get back to community. We need to stop the divide amongst ourselves and really love and care for
Yes.
each other. I'm telling you,
Yes.
unconditional, genuine love, like that love you have for your kids, you can have it for other human beings, you guys. It
Agape
is
love.
okay to say,
Agape.
I love you, sis. I love you, bro. It is okay.
Yes.
We need that. And that is one thing, is an issue I tend to see repeatedly in our communities. We need mothers and daughters bond to grow stronger than
Yes.
ever. We need fathers and son bonds to grow stronger than ever in the household, because in order for us to combat, some of
Yes.
these issues that are happening in our community, it starts with us.
It
Even with
does.
all this policing stuff, ensuring that we teach our kids soon. I feel like, honest opinion, as soon as they can talk and understand, you're teaching them about their rights. Believe it or not, your child have rights inside of a school system. They're human. You have your human rights. So teaching them, their rights with the police. Of course, in the Black household, it looks different.
Oh no,
We lost Bree.
we lost Bree.
Thank you, Teresa Barnes. Thank you for this live. We need more of it. Well, thank you. We will absolutely be doing more of these complicated and complex discussions that affect our families and yours. Yes.
Yes.
So Bree was talking about educating our children, and how a lot of times the education for Black youth looks different when we're
Yes.
teaching our children how to interact with police, or just how to move when they encounter the police, period. I remember a while back in Atlanta, they had that campaign, "Don't Run from the Police." Do you
Mhm.
remember that? Do you remember
Mhm.
that, sis?
Mhm. I do.
And they had the posters and the billboards everywhere saying, "Don't run from the police." Well, that was supposed to be something so that training Black men not to do something suspicious that could
Right.
get themselves shot.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of pointless, because we know that whether you run or not,
Comply
you
or
can get
not.
shot.
Yes.
And to be real, to be absolutely real and honest, look in the case of Corinne Gaines, the case of
Yes.
your cousin. They
Yes.
shot her in her own house.
Yes.
Where are we safe?
Yes.
And
With her son
yes,
there,
where are
like
we
it
safe?
did not matter.
It didn't matter.
Where are
And
we safe? And like I was saying about it,
welcome
it
back,
does
Bree.
not. Oh, hey, Bree.
Welcome back. So what were you
I got
saying
kicked
again?
out, technical issues. Sorry, you guys, but I'm back.
Okay. And so, like I was saying, it's a sad thing to know that being in your home, you aren't safe. And here it is. Everyone is, representing for Breonna Taylor. And it's as if because she was asleep, that's why she was innocent. Not because she was in her home. Not because they should not have came in there and did what they did, but because she was asleep. That's not okay.
And
That's not okay.
can we focus on that for a moment right quick? Because after the murder of Corinne Gaines, there was lots of backlash.
Controversy, yes, it was.
Yes, there was lots of controversy. Okay.
Mm.
People were saying that she deserved it. She did
Yes.
something to call it upon herself. Can we make
She
this
put her
clear?
son in the situation.
She was shot in her own home.
Yes.
Officers
Yes.
shot her, this
Yes.
woman, and her child.
Yes. Yes.
Where are we safe?
Let's make it clear that the gun she had was registered. Yes.
And You guys, I want to welcome
Yes.
Tanisha Tilson. Hello, welcome. How are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm well, and you? Thank you.
Yes, welcome. We're very excited to have you here today on the
Yes.
Mother's Council as we discuss police brutality in our communities.
Okay. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Okay, so before you came on, I gave a little bit of an introduction about Shawlee Tilson. Um, would you like to speak a little bit about the case before we get into the questioning part?
Okay. Shawlee was 22 years old. Shawlee was in a mental health crisis. The police were called. He was knocking on our old apartment door where we used to live. Shawlee was taken to the Rockdale County Jail, where Shawlee was issued a $6,000 bond for a disorderly conduct. Shawlee didn't have a criminal record. Shawlee was a college student, business owner, and Shawlee was starting his own business. Well, he already had started the business. He licensed and trademarked the name of the company with his own money while he was in school full time and working a full time job. So Shawlee was in the Rockdale County Jail for 9 days because we couldn't afford the cash portion of Shawlee's bond. During that time, Shawlee was in the jail. We never received any phone calls. We were never allowed to visit Shawlee. So it was probably about a week Shawlee had been there. It was a Friday, March 9th. My husband and I went to the jail to find out why we haven't received any calls from Shawlee and how come we were unable to visit him.
Mhm.
At that time, Shawlee's bond had also increased another $800 while Shawlee was in custody, and they couldn't give us a reason why his bond was increased, which made no sense to us. So I said to my husband, because the cash portion of that $6,000 would have been $850, we had to pay. So I said to my husband, we're trying to get together the $850 to get him out, and then they increased the bond another $800. So we asked to speak to a supervisor or someone to find out why we weren't able to see him, why we hadn't had any phone calls from him. So the deputy that we spoke to told us Shawlee never asked to use the phone, which we knew wasn't true. And I said, there's no way our son would be away from us for almost a week. And he corrected me. He said, yeah, it's been exactly a week. He said he's never asked to use the phone. I said, he knows I would be worried. And his father's sick. Like he would never be gone for this long without any contact from us. I mean, with any contact with us. Shawlee was in school in Providence, Rhode Island, and called us every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And after his father had the stroke, when Shawlee came to Georgia for a month on his summer break, he had a summer class that was, he left the first week of July because he had a summer course he was taking. Shawlee went back to Rhode Island to take his summer course. Shawlee called his father every single day until he came back to Georgia in September. So I knew at that moment when they told us that at the jail, something was wrong. I said, there's no way he would not talk to us. So we didn't even know why Shawlee had been arrested. On the recording, all it said was disorderly conduct. So my husband said, well, we can go to the police station and get the police report to find out why, he was arrested, like what happened. So we called the police station, asked if we could come get the police report. They put us on hold. They told us the woman said she'd have to see if it was available at this time, blah, blah, blah. So they told us, yes, we could come get the police report. And when we read the police report, it said Charlie was trying to kick in somebody's door, and the police were called. And I mean, the police report just didn't make sense. Like, the things they said Charlie was saying didn't sound like anything Charlie would say. So that was a red flag to us. So, I'm sorry, I missed the part. So at the jail, I asked them if we could see him since we were there. And they told us no, his visit day was Monday and Wednesday. But I already knew that. But I wanted to see if they would let us, visit him because we were there. So they told us Charlie's visit day was Monday and Wednesday. So I said, I asked the deputy, I said, well, can you give him a message for us? Can you tell him to call us? We're worried. Like, we need to hear from him. Can you let him know we're, trying to get the bond money together? And he told us they weren't allowed to pass messages, but he said, give me something I can say to him where he knows that I really spoke to you too. So my husband said, tell him to call V. So he said V, and I said, yeah, that's his father's name. That's his father's nickname. Like, if you say V, he'll know you spoke to his parent. So that's how we left the jail. Now, this was a Friday, March 9th. Charlie had a visit that Monday. That Monday, my daughter called the jail and made sure, she could go visit, because you had to book the jail time on a computer. But the jail time was all full. So I called and asked, if the jail time's full, how do you get to visit? So they said you would have to be there at 4:30. It's first come, first serve. So my daughter calls me and she says, I just called the jail and they said Sha can't have a visit today. He's still under restriction. So I said, I just hung up with them at the jail, not even 5 minutes before you called me, and they said he can have a visit. She said, well, I'm around the corner. They told me he's on restriction. He can't have a visit. This was Monday, March 12th. It was about 1:30, early Tuesday morning. The police came to our home, well, the sheriff deputies, whoever they were, and told us Charlie was deceased. So it just so happens that the day he had a visit, he ends up deceased in the jail, and they couldn't tell us why. They told us we had to call the GBI. Charlie was in, at the GBI. They could answer any questions we had. So after they left, the whole house, everybody, our daughters, everybody was hysterical. After everybody left, I said to my husband, we're going to that jail because I know they murdered our son and I want to see what he looks like. So we called the jail. I told them we were on our way. We wanted to see our son. They told us he wasn't there. He was at the GBI. They gave me the GBI's number. They said I had to call the morgue at the GBI. I called the GBI morgue. They weren't open. The recording said they opened at, I think it was like 8 a.m. or something. So everybody stayed up. Like, we never went to sleep, So my sister came, my niece came, and it was about 7:30. My sister called the morgue. Again, she couldn't get a hold of anyone at the morgue. So she said, well, we need to get on the road. It's time for us to head to the GBI. So we got to the GBI. The GBI told us they were a no view site. We weren't allowed to view Shali. So it was a bunch of us. It was about 3 carloads of us that went to the GBI. So I told them, I said, well, we're not going anywhere. I said, how can officers show up to our home and tell us our son is deceased and we don't even see him? Like, how do we even know if that's our son in there? We have no proof that that's our child. We're not going anywhere. So the room, the lobby started filling up because my sister, my niece, our daughter's son-in-law, everybody was parking. So when everybody came in and they saw how many of us it was in the lobby, they asked us to come into a conference room. So I said, well, I need to speak to a supervisor or something. I need to speak to somebody because we're not going anywhere until we see our son. So we waited. A supervisor came in. She told us the same thing. And I said, well, we're not going anywhere until we see our son. I said, and if somebody doesn't let us see our son, then I'm about to call the media. I said, I'm going to call Fox 5 and have the media come down here. So then she told us that we couldn't view Shali, but they could show us a photo of him from the neck up. So I said, no, I want full body pictures of my son. I want to make sure that's my son. And my sister looked at me and she was trying to calm me down because at that moment I was hysterical. And my sister was like, okay, we'll take that. And my sister said, I know you're upset. She said, we're all upset, but we need to let them show us at least a photo so we can at least identify him. She was like, we don't want them to throw us out. We don't even get that. So I said, okay. So she left. I don't even know how long she was gone. It seemed like hours, but she came back. And I assumed that she would put the photo on the table and let my husband and I view it. No, she didn't do that. She came in the room, she closed the door, and she had an envelope. And she took the photo out and held it up like this. And everybody just went hysterical. In that room was our youngest daughter at the time when Shali was killed. She was 12. She was with us. Our 2-year-old grandson, our grandson was 2 at the time. Everybody was hysterical. And I just remember, standing there and I just felt like my feet were frozen, into the floor, like I couldn't move. And my husband was sitting in a chair a few feet in front of me. And I remember my husband jumping up. And I just remember hearing him let out a noise I never heard him make in my life. And everything went black. So I guess at that point, I passed out, fainted. I don't know what happened. I just remember when I opened my eyes, everybody was standing around me, my sister, our daughters, and everybody was hysterical. And we left. I don't even remember leaving the building. Like, I really don't. I don't remember leaving the building. I don't even remember getting in the car, but I remember being in the back seat. And I said to our daughter, Diamond, we need an attorney. I said, they murdered Shali. We need an attorney as soon as possible before evidence and everything starts disappearing. That photo that they showed us, Shali's mouth was crooked. It looked like his jaw was broke or fractured or something. His eyes were, you know, looked like they were bulging out of his head. His mouth was bloody. I remember seeing a mark like on the left side of his head. And at that point, when we saw that photo, I knew there were things done to Shali, that they were keeping him away from us on purpose. And during this process, I'll say it was a few days later, I called a friend of mine and talked to her about an attorney. And we met with an attorney. They actually came to our home. And it was 3 of them. And I was desperate at that point. I signed the papers to hire those attorneys on the spot. I hired that firm, and Shali was being held still at the GBI. We only saw that photo. Mm-hmm. We were never able to touch him, see him. We just saw that photo she gave us. So the way the attorneys explained it to us was the process would take 3 weeks. They were going to autopsy Shali. They were going to do an investigation. So it would take about 3 weeks for that process. So during that 3 weeks, I never left the house. Like, I never left my house. Like, my anxiety was through the roof. Our daughters, they were all paranoid. Our daughter Diamond at that time lived around the corner from us. And she never went back home. Like, her, our grandson, our son-in-law, they were all at our house. And 3 weeks, it was approaching the 3rd week. And we wanted to bring Shali home to Providence, Rhode Island. My husband didn't want Shali buried in Georgia. I didn't want him buried in Georgia either. I said, this is not his home. They murdered our son here. I don't want him being buried in the state of Georgia. So we were bringing Shali home. So it was approaching the 3rd week. And I contacted the attorney and I said, when are they going to release Shali so we can lay him to rest? So prior to that, I had called them a few times. So, we were getting everything ready to take him home. I got his suit. I got his shoes. I finally left the house. My daughter and I picked out everything I wanted Shali to wear. I told my husband I was going to dress him for the last time. During that 3rd week, every time I called the attorney, he kept giving me another excuse. So the last time I spoke to him, he said, well, they're holding Shali for additional testing they want to do. I said, well, what type of testing? And he said, toxicology. So I'm on the phone and I'm like, look, I don't know what kind of 1st graders they think they dealing with, but they already have all of that. Like, toxicology is blood, tissue, and hair samples. They have all of that. So what do they need to hold him for to wait for toxicology results? So I knew that didn't sound right. So I said, okay, well, keep me posted, when they're going to release him. I hung up the phone and I said to my husband and our daughters, I'm about to fire they. I'm not going to say it, but I said, I'm about to fire them because they don't need to hold Shali for toxicology. I don't know who they think they're dealing with. So I went to Maui Davis's firm and I spoke with them and I signed the papers that day. And the previous attorneys were served their papers letting them know we no longer needed their services. Because at that time, I knew it was going on 2 months. No, okay, after the 3 weeks, The 3 weeks came and went. It was a month and a half. So they told us Shali passed away. Now pay attention. Shali's date of death was March 12th. Shali wasn't released from GBI's custody until April 25th. And that's only because I fired the previous attorneys and hired another firm. So once I hired Maui Davis's firm, it wasn't even a week later, and they got Shali released from the GBI, because I was like, we need to lay our son to rest. Like, how much longer do we have to wait? Like, we still have never been able to view him. And when I told Attorney Davis that, Attorney Spence that, when I went to their office, they was looking at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because they said, well, when did, ask about the service? I said, no, he's still at the GBI. And they were like, what do you mean he's still at the GBI? I said, yeah, he's still being held. My attorney said that they was holding him for toxicology, and they were like, wait a minute. So they went and got 2 other people for me to repeat the story. So they was like, Shali is still in GBI custody right now. I was like, yes, he is.
Yes, ma'am.
So what they did, but they got Shali turned loose.
Okay. I think that's for a lot of families who've had a loved one murdered by the police, killed by the police, die in police custody. It's a double-edged sword, because there's the one strike when they tuck away your loved one, and then there's the assassination of character that comes afterwards. So, Anthea, can we return to you? Can you please give us some insight about the day Corinne was actually killed by the police? When you found out about her death, how, break that down for us, please.
Okay, so my husband at the time, he was my fiance. We had went to visit Baltimore for him to meet more of my family. That was about July 28th. So we got back home maybe July 30th. August 1st, I wake up and I have a Facebook message from my cousin. She was stating that some weird people had came to our house that morning and to call her when I got up. So I call her when I wake up. We talk for a while, and she's letting me know everything that's going on. And she was telling me about what happened. She said it was 2 white males. They had came to her house to return tags that were stolen off of her vehicle. So they gave her the tags. She tells me about that. We get off the phone. I get back on Facebook, and it's probably about 2 hours later at this point. So maybe it's about 10 in the morning at this point. I get on Facebook, I see a live, and in the live, the caption read that the police had came to her house to serve her a warrant, but they did not have the papers to present her. They were just saying it from word of mouth. At this point, she had already been harassed by them for maybe almost 2 years now, so cooperating was not in the question. So they didn't have the papers to serve her the warrant. They were just going by word of mouth. She wouldn't let them in. She said that they drilled a hole in her wall from her neighbor's house. And at this point, I'm waiting for her to contact me back. We talk on Facebook Messenger for maybe about 10 minutes. She's letting me know what's happening, asking me to contact her mother and to contact the news. So that's what I'm doing. And maybe about 30 minutes after that, they say that she was shot. And they said Cody, which is her son, was shot. At this point, they were saying she shot him. That's the first word that they gave out. That the police shot her. She shot at her son, and then she shot at the police. Of course, her loved ones knew that was not the truth, and we never questioned it for a moment. But later down the line, it came out that they actually shot him,
and so on and so on. So, like I said, if that part of the story can be fabricated, what more would you fabricate? Why would you say that someone shot their son and he was sitting with her, not sitting against her or elsewhere in the house? He was with her. So I'm not sure why they did that, but what I do know is they made it seem as if she was in the wrong. She was in her home. That's not how they had to go about it. I've seen many cases where they've had standoffs with other people of other races, and it did not end that way, let alone in their home with their child. Cody was maybe about 4 or 5 at the time. It just was not right at all. And so now she has 2 children and they are motherless, and it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
So, with the understanding that a lot of times when these things happen, um, perhaps the first thing that the enforcement agencies kind of think of is to come up with some type of character flaws in these individuals to present a reason for why this thing had to play out or occur. I would just like both of you to have the opportunity right now in this space to not necessarily to focus on how our loved ones left, but who they were when they were here. You know, who you knew them to be, like who they were thriving as before and separate from this these incidents. Either of you can go ahead and start. Miss Tanisha, you go ahead.
Oh, okay, you want me to go ahead? Okay. Shali was a very selfless person. Back when I first started telling Shali's story, Shali was in college, a full-time student, and he was working at the State House in Providence, Rhode Island. So when his father had the stroke and Shali decided to come back, he left school and his job to come back to Georgia to help take care of his father. And when he came back, his father and I were upset. We were so upset with him that he left school. And he said, "Ma, I had to come back." He said, "Because you're gonna spoil Daddy." He said, "Daddy needs somebody to stay on him." He said, "I need to make sure he goes to physical therapy. I need to make sure he's eating, he's eating right. I need to make sure he's not drinking soda. I need to make sure he's doing this, that, and the other." So Shali would go with him to physical therapy. And when I think about this, I kind of giggle because my husband would never let me go in with him. He said, "Okay, I'm good. You can wait out here." So I would wait for him. He couldn't do that with Shali because Shali would go in with him and I would sit out there and wait for them. So there were even pictures that my daughters have posted when his father had graduated to the exercise bike and Shali was sitting next to his dad, with his phone, and he took a picture of his dad, on the exercise bike, and he was next to him, and our daughter said that he had posted it, on his Facebook page and was like progress. So he wanted to be there to make sure his father was recovering the way he should, because he knew I was a softie. If he told me, "Oh, I don't feel like going to physical therapy today," I would say, "Okay, you don't have to go." But Shali was like, "Nope, come on, Daddy, let's go for a walk." And they'd walk up and down the driveway. He'd hold his father's hand and he would say to him, "Daddy, you don't need the cane. Let's try it without the cane today." He would walk him up and down the driveway, and he would make sure, he did his speech therapy, that he didn't give the speech therapist a hard time. And because, he would get frustrated. And sometimes "Oh, I don't want to do this today." And Shal say, "No, Daddy, come on, you got to do it." So, he he would push him, and he, at that moment when his father had the stroke, he forgot all about his goals and his dreams, and it was all about, getting his father back on his feet and helping take care of his father. And then it was the big kid side of him. Shali, a lot of people don't know this, but Shali was 22 in a 10-year-old's body. Our youngest daughter, like I said at the time, she's the baby, and that's what they called her, the baby. And Shali and her and our grandson would run all through the house. They'd come in our room, jump on the bed, and he would be the ringleader. He'd come busting through the door, jump on our bed, the kids behind him, and we'd be laying down watching TV. And I was like, how you just gonna come busting through our door and jump on the bed? And then he used to sleep in the bed with us. And my husband would say, oh, you gotta get out of here. You're too big. You're a grown man. You can't sleep with us. And he'd be right in the middle. And when I say sleep, he would be knocked out. And his dad would try to wake him up. And I would say, just, leave him alone. Let him sleep there. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Daddy slept with us. But that's how much he was attached. Not just him, but all our kids. But when Shali was gone for a week and we didn't hear from him, this is somebody that was 22. If he walked to the gas station at the bottom of the street, my daddy, I'm going to the store. Do you need something? Shali never would be gone without calling us. And just, his funny. I could just go on and on. Like, everybody that knows Shali knows he was a clown. You couldn't be in a room with him for 2 minutes without laughing about something. He was always smiling, always laughing, always.
A beautiful spirit.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's how we would like to remember him. So thank you for sharing these parts of him with us.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
And as far as Corinne, that's a part of the story that I did leave out. They end up cutting off her phone service so that she wouldn't be able to call out or use the Facebook. They deleted the videos that she had off of Facebook. They put remembering her before we even had word that she was gone. That's how a lot of us knew. We keep refreshing her Facebook page and it's saying the videos that she just posted are gone. And then it's saying remembering her above her name. It was so hurtful. And so what I wanted to say is we would have been talking if her connection would have been on. She would not have not contacted anybody to say anything to anybody. So that's the thing about her. She always reached out to me. I'm from Baltimore. I moved to Atlanta. Now I live in Daytona Beach, Florida. She made sure no matter where I was at that she knew what was going on with me. I stated at the time I had a fiance. My wedding was probably about a month after that happened with her. And she was supposed to be my maid of honor. She was loving. She was just full of light. I did just have a daughter at the beginning of this year, and she has her name. Her name is Ayla Corinne. That, like, my cousin means so much to me. If you look on my page, you'll see my cover photos, pictures of us since we were babies. Like, we just were always so close, and everybody that knows her, if you type in her and look at her page, everybody that knew her loved her. And it's just hurtful to know that there are other people that feel the pain that I feel. It's a reassuring thing because I'm not alone, but it's so hurtful because we don't deserve this. Shali didn't deserve this. Corinne didn't deserve this. Shali's siblings didn't deserve this. Corinne's kids didn't, her siblings didn't deserve this. And nobody deserves this. We should not have to continuously do this. We should not have to continuously go through this and have more and more people who can feel where we're coming from.
Yeah.
But because this is what's going on, we do have to talk about it. I get so tired of correcting people when they're saying certain things, but I have to because I want them to know
what happened. I want them to
Yeah.
know my cousin's story. I want them to know that.
Mhm.
So it's a sad thing, but in the end, I know my cousin knew what was going down. She warned us. She told us what was going on. Some of us listened, some of us did not. In the end, we see she was not crazy. Shali was not crazy. Sandra Bland was not
Mhm.
crazy. George Floyd was not crazy. These people are not crazy. It seems the only way we can be murdered by police and be found in the wrong is if we are asleep, which is Breonna's Taylor case, and we still don't have justice.
Absolutely.
We still don't have the justice that
Yeah.
we deserve.
But see, this is the thing too. When you're in a jail, not even a prison, when you're in a jail, the Rockdale County Jail is not that much bigger than my house. Okay? When you have a jail that small and the person dies in their custody and no one can give us answers to what happened,
Yes.
why it happened. So as things started to come out, after the autopsy was complete, we went to the GBI for a meeting because the GBI were the ones, because Shali died in custody, they performed the autopsy. And the GBI said Shali died from severe dehydration, which caused blood clots to his lungs and legs. And then the blood clots is what, Shali died from. So we're like, okay, somebody's in a jail. How do they severely dehydrate to the point where it causes blood clots in both legs and in both lungs? And you also have to, I don't know if people know this, Shali was in solitary confinement, okay? Still to this day, with a special grand jury being held, they can't even give us a reason why Shali was put in solitary confinement. He never said he was going to hurt himself. He never said he was going to hurt anybody. Shali was in solitary confinement with no toilet, no sink, no shower. So,
Can I ask you, before you saw and your family saw the picture, what did you initially think when you heard that he had passed away in the jail?
I always knew Shali was murdered. And I said
I
that
already
when
knew.
they came to our house. And the reason why, because Shali, again, was studying criminal justice. And I said from the very first interview, the very first day I saw Shali, I said, I know my son's rights were violated some way, somehow, and he spoke on it, and they murdered him because of that.
Said something.
Shali was in school for 3 years. Shali was supposed to transfer to Roger Williams University that fall before he left school to come back to Georgia. So, I mean, this wasn't like Shali was a freshman student. Shali was studying criminal justice. He wanted to, his dream was to be a civil rights attorney.
So he knew.
So Shali knew. He knew. When we moved into that same apartment that they claimed Shali was kicking the door into, and I'm going to get back to that. Our youngest daughter has a dog, a little dog. She's had the dog ever since she was about 6 years old. So when we went to look at the apartment, they said we could have the dog. Pets were allowed. The day we went to sign the lease, they said, oh, no pets allowed. So I was like, oh, my God. And our baby, all her brothers and sisters are grown. So she's really like an only child. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, my God, she's not going to be able to take her dog. What are we going to do about that? So our daughter Diamond said she would take him, which was good. So Shali said, oh, no. You know what, Ma, take a picture of the lease and send me the lease. He wanted to read the lease over and he said, where you signed something, I can't even remember the conversation, but he was like, you need to circle and put your initials where it said something about the pet. Like he was telling my daughter and I what to do during, after we signed that lease so that his baby sister could have her dog. Because he was like, Ma, you can't separate her from her dog. Like that will traumatize her. So he was like, nah. He was like, we just covered that too in contract law last month. So, he was going in. So
Yeah.
I said to him, it's not that serious. Diamond's going to keep Gizmo at her house. She'll be able to see Gizmo every day. And then Diamond and Eric end up moving around the corner, which was even better. So she really got to see him every day. But
Yeah.
when we heard that 911 call from Charlie's arrest, first we heard the 911 call. And the 911 call was the old landlord. He lived in the apartment right across from us. Our apartment, what was it? B and his was C or something like that. But he was right here. It was him. And he said, he knew who Charlie was. He said, he used to live here. He's a former tenant. Well, his sister used to live here. I think he's drunk. So he thought Charlie was drunk. He said, yeah, he's banging on the door. So the 911 operator says, your door? He said, no, the door across, the apartment across is vacant. You know why it was vacant? Because we had just moved from there a few months prior. So Charlie was knocking on our old apartment door because he was confused. He probably thought he was going home. So for them to say he was kicking in somebody's door, and then when we heard the 911 call, it contradicted what the police report said.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? But again, this was after Charlie's death. Once I got the police report, I'm like, hold up. That's not what this says. So I showed my attorneys and I was like, no, that's not what the police report says. So it was a lot of, it's still I don't even know what to say because some of the things, mostly everything that has gone on in Charlie's case is like a movie. I think if somebody was telling me this story, I would be thinking like, oh my God, poor thing. This stuff really can't be happening. It doesn't sound believable, but because I'm living it, even sometimes I have to sit back like, this can't be happening because, okay, we're going to back up to the GBI. When Charlie finally got released from the GBI, for us to be able to take him to Rhode Island, we finally got to see him. It was almost 2 months later. Like I said, it was April 25th. We got to view Charlie for the very first time in person. And that same day, right after we viewed Charlie at the funeral parlor, my attorney and the funeral director brought me in the office and they said I had to make a decision within 24 to 48 hours on what type of service we were going to have Charlie, because Charlie was so decomposed. They let Charlie literally rot. Charlie was so far in the decomposure state, he couldn't be embalmed. So guess what? We couldn't take him home to Providence, Rhode Island. He couldn't be flown on a plane like that because he couldn't be embalmed. So the first time I got to view my son, I had to make a decision. Not at that moment. They said they'd give me at least to the next day to make a decision because he couldn't hold anymore. And against my husband's wishes, my husband didn't want Charlie cremated. I really didn't want to cremate him, but I wanted to take him home. And I said to my husband, we didn't want him buried here. I want to take him home one last time. And that was the only way we could take him home, was if we cremated him. And that's Charlie right there. So he's always with us. So that was the decision I was left with. So not only did you murder my son, you took away my right as his mother to dress him for the last time, for his grandparents to see him for the last time, for his brothers and sisters, niece and nephews to see him for the last time. Only myself, my husband, our 3 daughters, our son-in-law, and Charlie's best friend, who are here in Georgia. Our oldest kids that are in Rhode Island, they didn't get to see Charlie. Because when we brought Charlie back to Rhode Island, he was in a little black box. That's how we had to bring him home. So the suit, the shoes, everything I bought Charlie, he never got to wear. I still have all of that. All of it.
Can I ask you a question? Where is the case stand right now? Are you able to talk about any of that? Like what's happening?
I can't, pretty much nothing. The special grand jury, the district attorney decided she wasn't gonna hold anyone criminally responsible for Charlie's death because she felt like it wasn't intentional. So you put somebody in a room with no food, no water, and they severely dehydrated. So that's not intentional. The jail doesn't close. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a lot of people involved in this. First shift, second shift, third shift. Do you know how many people watch my son suffer and die in agony? Like, that's a slow, horrible, cruel death. And the way he looked, they still have never answered to us why he even looked like that. Charlie lost 20 pounds in the 9 days he was in that jail. Why? At what point?
And we've seen pictures.
Absolutely.
We've seen the pictures.
And at what point? And I'm not a medical professional, but I have enough of them in my family. And I have enough common sense to know what's right and what's wrong. So let's just say Charlie said, I'm not going to eat. This food's nasty. I don't like it. My mother didn't cook it. I'm not going to eat it. It's their responsibility to take him to a hospital if he's not eating to the point where someone is dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at somebody and tell.
And also,
doesn't look well.
And even with that, they have dietary restrictions that they give you in prison or mental health facility if you don't like the food, because they have to ensure that you are eating so you don't
drinking. Exactly. And if you don't do that, then you are supposed to be taken to a hospital where they can feed you or whatever intravenously. Because not only did Charlie have blood clots in both of his legs and lungs, Charlie also had a severe brain injury. Okay? They still have never told us why Charlie had a brain injury. Now, this is listed on Charlie's autopsy report. Charlie had a bleed on his brain. Okay? This happened in the jail. Why did Charlie have a bleed on his brain? Why did Charlie have all of those marks on his body? And again, when you read all of the report and then you see that video, 5 minutes of me watching that video, I paused it and I said to my attorney, let me ask you a question. You remember the internal affairs report, right? I said, I can't remember offhand which page number it was on. I said, but it was when they interviewed Dan Lang, Sergeant Lang. I said, Sergeant Lang said he went in Charlie's cell an hour before he died, and Charlie was sitting on his bed and he was talking to him. I said, how could he be sitting on a bed he didn't even have? So these are things they don't expect the average person to know. No, every document, every photo in Charlie's case, I have sat here, set up all night long, going through things myself, highlighting. I don't care what it is. Something don't seem right. I call my attorney. Look, hey, such and such, this, that. Why is saying this, that, and the other? So I said, okay, so now the internal affairs report is BS because the internal affairs report is supposed to be based on them watching the video.
Yeah.
Okay. So how come this investigator never asked what bed? There's no bed in there. Why are these questions not in there? You know why? Because they didn't expect us to get that internal affairs report. And they didn't expect us to see that video.
Or to dissect the report, to analyze the report, like you said, that rich person just say, "Oh, you're the professional, you did it right."
Yeah.
And so we have to continue to do that. So I commend you. Like, justice is going to be served. Hopefully, it don't take such a long time, but
every day it can't come fast enough because it scares me. Not only because what they did to my son, but because everyone that was involved in Charlie's death are all still employed at the Rockdale County Jail. No one has been fired. No one has lost their job. All of these people are still working at that jail. And they're all responsible for somebody else's sons, daughters, mothers, uncles, cousins. And this is scary. These people are all still in that jail and riding around in that county. And guess what? I don't mean to get off subject, but I wanted to share this. I got a text early this morning, and there was another death in the Rockdale County Jail.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yep. I think it was yesterday or Sunday, but they said the sheriff in the county hasn't announced it public. So again, another cover up. And I don't know if everyone's aware, but after Charlie's death, Jamie Henry also died in the Rockdale County Jail.
Wow.
Jamie left behind a 5-year-old son at the time of her death. This wasn't even 90 days after Charlie's death.
Right.
So how many more people? And a few months back, there was another death. So how many more people have to lose their life in this jail before something happens?
Right.
And this is Rockdale County, Georgia.
Yep.
In Conyers, right?
Georgia. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the sheriff was just reelected.
Was just reelected?
Last month.
See, voting matters.
It does.
So what do you want to see change in policing? What do you want to see change in Rockdale County?
I want that entire administration removed. I feel that's the only way people are going to be safe. If that whole administration is removed and replaced. Charlie was pressing a help button. They said didn't work. That was also in the report. They knew the button didn't work. In the report, it says the button hadn't worked for years.
That's a violation, right?
Exactly. So Charlie was pressing a button that they knew didn't work. So you can't tell me that wasn't on purpose. Why would you put somebody in that cell where you know the help button doesn't work and they need help? And he's banging on the window and he's banging on the door asking for help and no one comes to help him. Right. And this wasn't just one day. Charlie was begging for help. We've spoke to numerous people that were in that jail and told us what they heard Charlie saying. And we know they're not making it up. We know they're not. Because this is the same things that was in some of these reports. Things that Charlie said. But like I said, for starters, that administration has to go. There has to be procedures put into place for people that have mental illness. You can't tell me they can't recognize when someone is in a mental health crisis. Instead of taking Charlie to jail, they should have took him to a hospital. He didn't commit a crime. So why would you take him to jail? Because he was knocking on somebody's door. He deserved to be arrested for that. He needed help.
It's very interesting because you said the landlord said, no, I know him. I just think, and even then, like you said, the difference between someone's being drunk and when someone's like something's off.
Yeah.
So, and then did you even give him a breathalyzer? Did they even do that?
That was one of the things when we finally saw the arresting video and I saw the way Charlie looked. I listened to the things he was saying and I said, it's clear he's not in his right state of mind. Like, you don't have to be a medical professional to see something was wrong. And let's just say, even if they did think he was drunk, or even if they did think he was on drugs or something. I remember I used to watch that cop show years ago, and people would be drunk. What do? Take them to the hospital to detox, let them sleep it off. And then they'd walk out the hospital. If a person is drunk in public, they would take them to a hospital and let them detox. Or if a person is on drugs or whatever, they take them to a hospital. Why didn't they do that for Charlie? Why was jail the only option for him? Why was that? That has to change. That definitely has to change.
I agree. Sounds like a lot of policies and procedures need to be changed there. It sounds like their whole county jail needs an updo if things are not working and haven't been working for years and they known. Those are all type of violations. So whoever that inspector is needs to be fired because they had to write off on something to say.
What about the orders? Yeah. I mean, there's so many levels to this. And when we've talked to people, they're like, yeah, that button, they got the money for auto repairs in the jail. And we don't know why that was never fixed. So, okay, you give somebody money to make repairs. You don't come back and check to see how they spent the money, if the money was spent the way it should, and if those repairs are not made. Who do you answer to? Like, why is I don't understand the disconnect. There's so many disconnections on so many levels. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Because it just looks like in Rockdale County, they do what they want to do when they want to do it, and that's that. And this is why this is going to continue to happen, because there's no accountability for anything being done in that jail.
You hit the nail on the head. Accountability, which we finding that to be the common denominator in every city and county across Georgia. These people, these cops, irrational type cops, shooting cars of children, murder people, don't Mirandarize anybody. You know what? I'm gonna put you on administrative leave because you know what? You just hunky-dory to us.
Accountability.
Yeah.
No one, the chief is not getting accountability. Like that person's not firing. Then your mayor come around and be like, oh, okay, well, I fired this one over here because you was wrong, but this one did way more severe. The criminal justice system within itself, in the people, how the chain of command is working, accountability is a joke.
Yeah.
What type of justice was served in the case of Corinne Gaines, Anthea?
The
What took
officer
place?
name was Ruby. Officer Ruby was fired but works elsewhere. So he does still have a job. It's just not in that same office.
That
And there
same
was a
person.
case where money was awarded and it was overturned and then it was just awarded again. So my family did win the case. But like I said, how much justice can it be? You have people saying, well, they took the money. Is that what would her life mean, that much money and all of those things? No, it does not. At the end of the day, her son was shot and he deserves to be made sure he's taken care of,
Taken care of.
especially since he does not have a mother.
Yeah.
Her daughter is motherless as well. No, she was
Mhm.
not injured, but she's still motherless. So,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
I said, my family did win the case. The officer is still employed, just not in the same department.
But
Right.
what people on the outside don't understand also is it's not the money, because no amount of money they can give you is going to bring your loved one back.
At all.
They can give me $1,000,000. Guess what? It's not going to give me our son back.
Yeah.
We're never going to see him graduate from college.
Yes.
We're never going to see him get married.
Yeah.
We're never going to see him have children. There's no amount of money that you can give a family that can give that back. But what people don't realize is sometime if the family is awarded, that is the only form of justice the family can get. Because, like she said, I'm sorry, what's your name, honey? I'm sorry.
Anthea.
Anthea?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Anthea. Like Anthea said, her children need to be taken care of. But you also have to remember this. There are laws put in place that protect police officers.
Yes.
So even when they kill your loved ones, it doesn't mean, oh yeah, you're going to take them to court and you're going to sue and get money. No, that's if the judge even allows it, if it makes it that far.
Yes.
I've spoken to numerous families out of Georgia in different states all over,
Yes.
and they have tried to get a civil suit and the judge threw it out. So they'll never get that. And the officers that killed their loved ones are still working. So not only do they need to be fired, their certifications
Yes.
need to be taken away.
Stripped away.
Because
They're not being allowed to get it back.
Yes.
guess what? They can go to the next city, the next town, and become a police officer again.
Yes.
And the same thing gonna happen over and over and
And
over.
over again.
If you take away their certifications for them to be a police officer, they can't work in law enforcement anymore.
Anywhere.
They shouldn't be allowed to.
Yes.
I feel like it shouldn't be allowed in public safety, period. It's
I
like if
agree. Yep.
you commit a rape, you red flag. You have to sign up as a
Yep.
registered sex offender. The
Yep.
same
Oh no, honey.
into the job.
Not when you have a badge. They got a lot of them on their force all over. And because they are law enforcement, they might fire them at that department. But again, they don't have to register as sex offenders, and they can go to the next town and get
Exactly.
another job somewhere else.
Yep.
That's an issue.
And
There's a lot of problems
have
here.
to change because they are allowed to commit any type of crime they want to and still keep a job.
Yep.
They still keep their job. If that particular force, department, whatever they're working for doesn't let them go, they can go anywhere. Look at Tamir Rice's killer. He got hired again.
Again.
Look at Nicholas Thomas's killer. He I think he's the head of the GBI now, I think. Or assistant or something like that.
Wow.
Look at Jamarion Robinson's killer. The force that was involved in shooting him 76 times.
Yep.
Two of those officers were two of the officers that attacked those Atlanta students.
Yep.
They still on the force, still terrorizing people. They dragged them kids out of a car and tased and beat them. And 4 years ago, you already murdered somebody else. But Monteria Robinson has read off a list of things those officers have been involved in.
Mm,
And they still got a job. They
Yep.
still have a job.
And so this is, I guess a lot of the basis behind a lot of people saying defund the police and things like this, because this is too much to have. We literally, it seems like to be a police officer, you got a legal right to kill in America.
As long as you say you were afraid.
Sign up.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
mean,
And it seems like just what Anthea said, as long as you say you were afraid, as long as they say they were in fear for their lives.
It can be a
But
baby, as we see babies in a car and you're afraid of them, babies on the street and you're afraid of them, so you shoot. It does not make any sense.
Right. And we're not allowed that same type of fear
outside your home. You're not safe anywhere.
Right. So one of the things I perceived in Rayshard Brooks' murder was that he was afraid of the police. I never saw, like, watching the video, felt like he was trying to be aggressive. I felt like he was trying to run away. He was scared. He was nervous. He was in fear for his life, trying to avoid a situation that
Being in those
ultimately
cuffs, knowing
could
he
not
can't
escape.
stop what they do. Yes.
But it's not only adults that are afraid of police.
Right.
Kids watch TV. Kids are on social media. They see what's going on. They hear what's going on.
Yeah.
I remember the first what do you call it? The first protest that we had for Charlie and Jane in jail. Our oldest daughter came from Rhode Island with our grandkids, and Gigi, she was 4 at the time. Our granddaughter Gigi, and the helicopters were flying around, and he said, "Nene, is that the police? Are we under attack? Are they coming to get us?" And I just looked at her, and I didn't even know what to say.
Yep.
Because do I say no and then they really attack us? Or do I say yeah and they're just flying over us? But, prior to that protest, after the protest, we found out they had sharpshooters on the roof. People took pictures of sharpshooters on the roof. This is a peaceful protest. They called in agencies from other cities because they said outside agitators will come or whatever. So the helicopters were observing. So it's like you have a 4-year-old asking you if you're under attack, if we're under attack by the police, and she is to this day afraid of the police.
Right.
I said,
I think a lot of our youth are afraid of the police. Yes. And it comes from, that's not even something that a seed that needs to be planted. This fear is coming from their experiences that they're having, the experiences that they see their uncles, their aunts, their moms, their dads getting pulled over. They're seeing the interactions, and it's really frightening in today's climate with everything that's going on. It seems so much more explosive and pervasive and in your face. And the children are not being spared. They're not being spared the bullets. They're definitely not being spared exposure to this. So it's not something we can necessarily keep our children away from to curtail that fear. And I just want to say this for those tuning in, just now tuning in. This is the Her House. We have the Council of Mothers here. I'm Ife Falome. the founder of the Her House. We're joined here by Brienne, the president of Form, and Thea Unique, the vice president of the Her House, who's also here speaking about her cousin who was murdered by police, Corinne Gaines.
Yeah.
And we also have Tanisha Tilson, mother of Shali Tilson, who was murdered in a Rockdale County prison, in a Rockdale County jail.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're having conversations about police brutality and violence in our community. So
This has been such great conversation. And Tanisha, thank you so much for joining us and speaking about Shali and just telling us how, of a great person he was. He sounds like, even just looking at his picture, I can see in the background, he seemed like he was a very intelligent, well-spoken
Yes, well,
man. And he knew what needed to be done. And it hates that we've lost another one, but we will continue to say his name until justice is served.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I
Yes.
want to extend any way that Form can help you, assist you, or if you need anything, please let us know. I'm definitely going to be continuing to share you guys' story. There will be a protest march on August the 25th in Atlanta. We're starting at the 4th Ward at about 4:30 p.m. And we're going to be talking this same type of talk, and we're going to be saying their names. And so if you are interested, please just let me know and I can get you connected with Governor Brown. So he's a young college student who is speaking about this because he said he's tired. He's tired of our kind being taken and he wants to invoke change. And so we have started working together to get this protest started. And we are definitely would love for you to continue to share your story because the more people hear it, the more support we get. And we're going to be up in their faces because like you and your family drove up 3 carloads at the GPI and demanded some type of identification of your child. That's how we're rolling. Because what I have come to learn, support in numbers matters.
yes.
Matters.
Yeah.
And the Her House is here to support you as well. We are mothers and we come together to stand and support mothers.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And I'm so grateful and thankful that you both were here to share your stories. Not happy about the stories, but I'm
Yeah.
thankful that we are here to receive them.
Yes.
Yes. You
Awareness.
said that march is on the 25th, August 25th?
August 25th. So it is a Tuesday.
Let me show you how the universe works. Well, what's right before that, Tootie?
What is it you said?
They said they're doing something on the 25th. What's on the 24th? Don't somebody got a birthday on the 24th?
August 24th?
No?
Nope.
Okay. Never mind.
And I just wanted to
Bless you.
extend, bless you, my condolences to you for Corinne Gaines. I want to just share a quick story with you about Corinne. I hadn't heard about Corinne's story when it first happened because I wasn't on social media at that time. And Shali was in Rhode Island in school. And Shali told me about Corinne's story. And he said, Ma, you got to go on YouTube and look at all her videos. And he said, Ma, they had been following her. And so since I came on late, I didn't know until you said Corinne's name that that's who you were speaking about. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I have to tell her about what Shali said. It was
Yeah.
Shali that
God.
told me about Corinne's
Yes.
story.
Yes,
And she told
ma'am.
me to go on YouTube, and I watched her videos. I watched the one with her going into the police station, asking about the warrant,
Paperwork and
the cop was like, "No, we don't have that." Like the sarcasm in his voice, and I remember I watched, I don't even remember how many videos, but I watched till there were no more for me to watch.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I called Charlie, I said to him, she documented her murder.
Yes. Yes.
And it horrified me that she laid the blueprint and it was
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And Charlie told me about Corinne's story.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
When
ma'am.
when is Corinne's birthday, Anthea?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is August. Okay, that's why I'm off. I'm off, Ethan. I'm sorry. It's August. That's why you said the 24th. I'm
Yes.
sorry about that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And y'all's event is the March is the
August the
25th.
25th.
See how the
Yes.
universe works?
Yes,
Wow.
ma'am. I'm thinking it's July. I'm sorry, guys. I'm off.
You're
Corona
sorry.
has me
It's
off.
okay.
Newborn baby has me off. Yes, ladies. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So we'll definitely be looking forward to hearing more about that march and being there in person to support it. You
Yes.
know I am. Hey.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, Miss Tanisha, I'm going to send you a friend request if that's fine.
Yes, please, because I'm friends with your aunt.
Yes. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
friends with your aunt.
Yes.
Please send me a friend request because I want to keep in touch with you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
really do.
Love it. Love it.
And
Oh
this
my
is
God.
community.
Yes.
This
If
is
any of the viewers want to
this
reach
is-
out, feel free to send us friend requests or message us about anything.
Okay.
And I see the baby's coming out, so
Yes.
we gotta pack it up and wrap it up tonight. Okay, thank you, beautiful council of women.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Love
you
you
for
guys.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.